All right, hybrid cars, carpooling, ethanol, you name it. Lots of folks searching around for ways to cut their fuel consumption. But the move for some, and we don't mean move, driving many to pack their bags and head to the cities. So when the oil crisis shakes out, will the cities or suburbs be stronger? Let's ask Dolly Lenz, Vice Chairman of Prudential Douglas Elliman, and CNBC's real estate correspondent Diana Olick. Thanks to both of you. Dolly, I'll start with you. A few months ago, we were interviewing an exec from one of the big housing firms. I don't remember who, Toll, Hovnanian, one of those. And I asked him about the exurbs. And at the time, he said that wasn't going to be a problem. But I guess now it is, isn't it?
It's definitely become a problem. And I think people are now really re-looking at all their options, reviewing everything, and many are deciding to stay in cities versus go out to the suburbs that they'd thought about or played with for a while.
For those who have already gone, they're kind of stuck, aren't they? I understand that the farther out from a city center, the more price deterioration is being experienced.
That's correct. And those are the areas also where the banks are being very careful about lending. They're on, watch lists, et cetera, so definitely more difficult.
Diana, can you break down the numbers, as I know you're always looking at them to see the difference in terms of foreclosures or delinquencies on mortgages on exurbs versus city center?
Yeah, absolutely. But I got to say right off the top, I don't buy it. Yes, you're seeing more foreclosures, and yes, you're seeing bigger price depreciations out in the suburbs, but it doesn't have anything to do with gas prices. It has to do with overbuilding in those areas. There just simply wasn't enough demand for it. And it also has to do with the psychology of some of these buyers right now. They see the high gas prices and they're saying, oh God, I don't want to spend X amount of dollars to drive to and from work every day. But if you look at the costs of living in the exurbs versus living in the downtown, where you are paying more for everything from your dry cleaning to your coffee to your food to your education for your kids, the numbers simply don't pan out. It's going to be far cheaper to live in the suburbs or the exurbs, even with higher gas prices. But that just doesn't seem to be getting through to the consumer right now.
That's a really interesting point, Dolly. What do you say to that?
Well, there's also other issues. I mean, if you're in a city, you don't have a commuting time either. So there are pros and cons to everything, but what I'm finding is that this is the straw that is pushing everybody over to say, you know what, I'll stay in my slightly smaller, slightly uncomfortable apartment, or buy a slightly smaller, slightly uncomfortable apartment.
Are they, Dolly, running the numbers, though, to Diana's point, or are people just hearing about gas prices and they're nervous as opposed to actually knowing the facts?
They are running the numbers, and gas, interestingly, not heat, not something else, is what's making that decision change to stay.
Because if you look at energy prices, though, if you're living in the exurbs, you're living in a brand new house, probably, or a home that's 5 to 10 years old, which is going to be far more energy efficient than the urban home that's going to be a much older home like mine here in D.C. that leaks like a sieve. It's going to cost you a whole lot more in your energy costs in the city as well. But I also do think that it is not so much gas. It is the fear that the exurbs were overbuilt, and that's why they're not appreciating, that's keeping people out of it.
But yes, you may have a more energy efficient home, but a much larger home than you really need.
Exactly.
So, cuts both ways. But Diana, you certainly seem to be arguing one side here. I'm not sure why that is.
I'm just saying that's what the numbers seem to show.
Obviously, you don't have one of these things to sell. So,
a lot of these things are emotional also, though, and people are looking at it and saying, even if they're not sitting with a pen and paper and saying, this is what I should do, this is what I shouldn't do, this adds up, this doesn't, they're still doing it emotionally.
It's all, and I agree with that. It is all about emotions. It's people seeing these prices and saying, I don't want to drive that far out.
And they go to a gas pump and spend $100 and they have a heart attack.
Let's get to the business aspects, though. It seems to me if you follow this logically, it would mean it's going to be more difficult for new home builders to find buildable land, because the closer you get to the city, usually, the less available land there is. Isn't that true?
And Mark, we're seeing that because when we talk to the builders who concentrate on simply building infill homes in urban areas, they're doing fantastic, especially in the D.C. area. It's the bigger builders who were builder developers. And at a conference I was at last week at Bank of America, even the big builders said they're changing their business model from developers to manufacturers. That's because they want to get back to infill.
All right. Dolly Lenz, Diana Olick, thank you both very much.